Hello, friends, and welcome to another God Talks. Today, I get an opportunity to spend some time with the Reverend Leslie Jackson, the newest member of our area conference ministry team representing the South Central region. How are you, Leslie?
I am good and glad to be here with you today. Yeah.
I imagine that these first few weeks of your time in the Southern New England Conference have probably been something like a little bit of a fire hydrant as people are getting to know you and wanting to meet you and inviting you to churches and ordinations and installations and all of these things. But I've been really appreciative from watching you even from afar that you have jumped right in. And
Yeah.
though on staff, I'm trying to caution us from the hit the ground running piece because we do want you to have some time to reflect and adjust and all of that. But I'm going to say for this one, my sibling, you have hit the ground running.
Yeah. Well, I don't really know any other way to do this. I was the same way as a local church pastor, and coming here, it's like, I was really concerned about like, how can I, find what churches do I need to see and who do I need to meet? Where do I need to go? And I can't remember who said it to me, but they said, slow down, the work will find you. And by week 2, the work found me. And I was like, I'm not even completely oriented yet. Can I finish the orientation? And the work found me. But it has been a joy and such a delight to get around to the association meetings and to go to some of the churches and to be at some installations already and some ordinations and to just see the vibrancy and life that exists within the South Central region. So I'm grateful for that. And that just keeps me going. So it's good to be here.
Well, one of the stories that I heard most recently is that you were at ordination service, and unfortunately the keynote speaker was caught in traffic and everything else, and they could not make it. And so probably without big notice, you were able, as the area conference minister, to just step in, offer the ordination sermon, and move the service along. Now, I offer this story just really as an example of a model of what the Reverend Leslie Jackson can do, but not as an invitation that without warning, you should just be called up to extemporaneously preach. But, I think that's just a sign of the ways in which you are willing to jump in, to serve, and to be a member of this community. So I want to applaud you on the ways in which you're already showing up. But I'm going to jump into some questions because I want part of our time for the God Talks is to get to know you a lot more and really from this spiritual place. So if you wouldn't mind, Leslie, share with us your call to ministry. So I'm curious, what happened in the life of Leslie Jackson that made you feel, realize, or kind of accept that call to ministry?
Oh my gosh. And how much time we say we're going to go for, like 20, 30 minutes? We would need all day. The short story is, I just really loved and enjoyed going to church. And there are 2 things that really come to mind when I think about my call story. And one is for holidays and special events, I would go in my room and get dressed, and then I'd come out and then my great grandmother would say, boy, you are going to be a little jack-legged preacher. And at that time, I didn't really understand what a jack-legged preacher is. And you all can go and look it up. But I'm not a jack-legged preacher, but I did become a preacher. My great-grandmother did not like church at all, but she was confident that I was going to become a pastor. And I thought to myself that if a woman who did not like church at all, but loved reading her Bible, loved God, could see something like that in me, that was part of God calling me into ministry. Is part one. Part 2 is I wanted to go to church and be in church and worship and serve and do things even when my family and my parents did not want to go. And so I taught myself how to drive a standard stick shift car one morning just to get to church because my mom didn't want to drive me so that I could be there. So from an early age, and definitely as a teenager, it was very, very strong that I would see the preacher, I would see the singing, I was involved in the church work and the finances and all of those things. And I was just like, this is what I want to do with my life. And then puberty happened and kind of changed directions for me in terms of what I thought would be possible. So, yeah.
Well, now, I'm going to follow up on that. So what made this vision that you had sort of been having as a child and deeply involved in church seemingly become not possible?
Well, at the time, I didn't, growing up in Houston, Texas, and growing up as I've shared with people that I grew up as a mega church Christian. So I was on the youth staff at the largest church in the country, and serving alongside uh, this very popular preacher. I'm not going to call his name, but I'm sure several people have his books and watch him on TV still. But I was serving alongside his sister and his brother-in-law on the youth staff at this church. And I went into the youth pastor one day and I said to him, I said, listen, you know, um, I love my best friend. And he said, well, men should love each other and men should support each other. And, that's godly for men to, really care about each other. And you should love and support your best friend and he should love and support you. And I said, no, I think that's not what I mean. Like, it's a different type of love. And at that point, I was told, I had to resign from youth staff, and that if I continued to believe those things and think those things, that I would end up in hell. So at that point, I was a very confused teenager. I've had some suicidal ideation. I had a lot of religious trauma because of that. And so I didn't think that there would be a way for me to be able to serve, and even in the capacity that I have served in and am serving in now. Yeah.
And somewhere in that story, something shifted. So
Yeah.
for somebody watching this who may not have made it to where you are now,
Yeah.
why don't you share a little bit about what shifted? So we kind of pause at this place where you meet a religious figure who doesn't offer the most Christ-like response,
Right.
and you're left to wrestle with that. And then something changed. What was the change?
So I joined the Navy because my mom told me that if I didn't join the Navy, she was going to have me arrested. I was just, I have a theory that a lot of people act out because of their religious trauma and the things that they've gone through. And so I acted out. I did the fool, as my mom would say. And so she told me, you can either join the Navy or I can, have the police come pick your, I think we can't use that word here, but come pick you up right now. And so I joined the Navy. I was in the Navy for 5 years, came out of the Navy, and I was looking to change my life to do some things different. And I just Googled, where is a church that welcomes LGBTQ folks? Or gay people, because I didn't use LGBTQ then. And a metropolitan community church came up in Houston, and I attended that church, and they were very Christ-centered and Christ-focused at that time. And so it was something that was very appealing to me. And that's how I came back to the church and back to my faith. And then fast forward, I ended up going to seminary at a Union Theological Seminary. MCC, Resurrection MCC sent me there. And then I discovered the Riverside Church in New York. And I was like, wow, there's straight people and gay people and white people and black people and people from all different types of people are worshiping here. And I was like, that's what I want. I want to be in a church where everybody is there. And then I was introduced to this idea that everybody doesn't have to agree. And then I was like, my God, this is home. This is where I want to be. So I jumped through a lot of things, different things there, skipped over a lot of different things, but that's how I came back to God. And that's how I came to the UCC.
And so prior to coming here to the Southern New England Conference, you have kind of a unique pastoral journey, because you had a church start, but then you were able to merge that church with a older church and somehow create something. So talk to us a little bit about your pastoral ministry experience and the creativity of that as you help merge those communities.
Yeah. It's so even going back to Houston was, I use the term strategic decision, and I need to be careful because it has gotten me into trouble a little bit, but a strategic decision in the sense of where can I go to create this vision of church that I have, and where will the people be the most receptive and responsive? And so Houston felt like the natural place to go because I was very familiar with the religious landscape and which open and affirming churches are there, which progressive churches are there, and the mega churches, and kind of the religious landscape I was very familiar with. So I went back there. I struggled for a couple of years to even get ordained. But once I was finally ordained, I was ordained through, it was called Cathedral of Hope Houston, which was planted by Cathedral of Hope in Dallas. They planted this church. And I fast forward through this story. I become the pastor of this church. And it was interesting because the night before I was called to become the minister of education, is how I was originally ordained. I told God, if you wanted me, you were going to have to drop it in my lap. So he drops a church in my lap that is a church full of white lesbians over the age of 50. And I told my partner at the time that I have to take this call because last night I told God, if you want me, you got to drop it in my lap. And God dropped it in my lap the next day. So this is where I have to go. So I go there, and again, eventually I become the pastor, and I start making some changes that I feel need to be made. Nothing drastic, but very inclusive, very diverse. And just so no one gets any ideas, we didn't turn it into a Black gospel church, not right away, but very inclusive and worship. And it pretty much killed the church. But 2 weeks later, something amazing happened. We went from 10 to 20. And then the next week we went from 20 to 40. And then the next month we went from 40 to 60. And so in a matter of 2 to 3 months, we had eclipsed and blew past the original membership that was there. And here's why. The vision that I had was this. This is the religious landscape of Houston. What's missing? And what was missing was a place for progressive evangelicals to land. Progressive evangelicals, I mean straight people, gay people, lesbian, bi, transgender, white, Black, Asian. That was missing. And so we created it, and we ended up with a very diverse and inclusive church. And to this day, we've got, they have straight couples that are serving in the ministry and are committed to the ministry and the music ministry and the AV team. And so just by thinking about what was missing and finding again, I'm going to use a business term, but finding a niche and finding what are some people in need of that is missing in the religious landscape really worked very, very well for me. And so I was able to do 3 revitalizations just off of that demographic strategic approach alone. Yeah.
The things I want to highlight for people listening to this is that you've evidenced that you have some experience with what is a new church start or a birthing a church, even out of something that you might be a great conversation partner around legacy. But we know that legacy doesn't always end in just a full closure or a sunsetting of that ministry. It might resurrect into something else, and that people might reach out to you around vision casting. Like, what is the vision that you have for what might be missing in an area? As we think about new church starts in the Southern New England Conference, I want us to really be thoughtful about what might be missing in a community, or what may have been there 20 years ago but no longer exists, that community is aching for and needing, so that we're not just like, oh, I have a bright idea, so let me go create this, but we've done some thoughtfulness around it. So I know it could be a business modeling or whatever, but I sort of think about it as like, it is true discipling. And discipleship requires that you pay attention to your demographic, you see what might be missing in that area or what might be a need of the community, and then you try to form the response. And so what I hear you saying is that you formed a response based on the community that you felt called to serve and where you felt those gaps were, and true to biblical gospel witness, somebody planted the seed, somebody watered, but God gave the increase.
And I think sometimes we kind of, we don't acknowledge that that's exactly what Jesus did. Jesus spoke in parables. Jesus found a need that needed to be met. Jesus met the moment that he was in. And so, I think, some of us struggle to meet the moment. We want to resist what is happening in the culture. We want to resist what is going on. But really, if we meet this moment, we still see that life is lifing, and people still need a place to belong. They need a place to connect. They need a place to find purpose. They need a place to find meaning. That still works. It worked in Jesus's time, and it still works in our time now. I shared at a recent installation that there was this church logo, this tagline or motto, I guess, that they have, that I saw from this church online, and I used it to update the mission statement at St. Peter when I was the pastor there. But it was really simple, really, really simple. Life is hard. We're here to help.
Mm.
And if we just do that, if we do the qualitative work, to use business terms again, if we do the qualitative work, all of the quantitative stuff will follow. But we do need to be strategic about that, and we do need to find where the need is. And the great thing is that we can do some very innovative and creative ministry. Not every ministry is meant to be praise and worship, hands in the air, smoke and mirrors kind of church. There are some great church models out there that I think can grow and be viable in the Southern New England Conference. And also, several of our churches, most of our churches right now can do some innovative things as well too. I've seen some churches that have what it takes right now, but they need that hope and that encouragement. So that's something I hope to bring to the table as well too. Yeah.
So transitioning from the local church, the other piece that I think you do bring to the Southern New England Conference is you were deeply involved in your association. And I know that the South Central Conference associations operate a little bit differently than maybe they do here in Southern New England. But would you mind speaking to a little bit about your work in association life, just so folks have some context to some of the other work you were doing?
Yes. So what is very similar here to the South Central Conference and to the Houston Association is that, we struggle to get people to serve on these committees, and in particular in the Houston Association, it was the Committee on Ministry. And so after I was ordained, I began serving on the Committee on Ministry, and I want to say it was probably 6 months later that the chair resigned, and everyone was like, well, what are we going to do now? And then for whatever reason, everybody's head at the table turned towards me. And I said yes. I mean, I do actually like referring to the manual on ministry and the manual on church. And so I am a person, I think it's the Navy part of me that just likes rules and regulations and best practices. And this is how we do things in a structured and ordered way, because I believe that keeps us safe and accountable. And, so I like that. And so that is how I became the chair of the Committee on Ministry. And I stayed in that position for 8 years. They even had to suspend the bylaws because no one else would serve. And so, up until when I left, things were kind of stuck in that position where I was continuing to serve as the chair. And I kept telling them for a couple of years, listen, you need to do something because I might not be here forever. And so something did happen. I got called to become the ACM here. So I enjoyed doing that work. I loved working with the MIDs and putting the portfolio, the ministry portfolio in place, the Marks portfolio, setting up that system. I loved bringing in, I brought in a Methodist church while I was the chair of the Houston Association, creating that process as well too. So these are things I enjoy. And that led me right into being like, I could go and do this full time. Mm. And so here we are.
So before we get into then, how did you end up here? In this role in South Central? I mean, I want to say that the universe thought it was only fair that if we sent Reverend Isaac Lawson to Texas, that we should take something back.
Well, it's funny that you set it up that way, because I thought you were just going to ask me how did I end up here. And I was going to say, well, you don't remember? You and Molly said we would swap, that I would come here and Isaac was going to go there. But then that probably would have raised a whole lot of eyebrows. And stuff, that was going to be my joke.
The congregation was having many things happen. But before I ask you about what drew you to the role, I want to pivot completely and ask you about your prayer life.
Yeah. Okay.
So talk to me a little bit about what grounds you spiritually, and then how do you hope to bring that sense of prayerfulness in your service to churches, and then we'll kind of get to then, and then yeah, why did you say yes to this role? I mean, we kind of see the trajectory ongoing, but I want to hear a little bit from you about what grounds you spiritually.
Well, it's complicated. And there's a lot of pieces to it. After growing up in a tradition where it was always please God, God do it, God fix it, God come, please, 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 God. I still pray some of those prayers, especially if I'm praying in a congregational setting. But my personal prayer life, I really focus on using something that's called an affirmative prayer. So I believe that each of us have God in us and the Christ spark within us, the light within us. And so a lot of the things that I pray for, I seek to just affirm those into existence. And, people shy away from the word manifestation, but I think there is something to be said about what we say about ourselves and what we say to ourselves. And so it's not that I'm praying to myself, it's that I am saying things that align me with what God says about me. And if God says I've been designed to be successful, then I need to say I am successful and I'm walking towards what God has called me to be. If God says that I'm to walk in perfect health and peace, then I pray I'm walking in perfect health and peace. So my prayers are more about aligning myself with what I see in the Word of God and aligning myself with what I believe God's vision is for me. So I don't need to beg God for things that God has already said, this is who you are and this is what you should have. I don't have to beg God for that. I need to align myself with what that truth is so that truth can be made possible. There's a lot in that, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of comments about that, but that is what my personal prayer life is about. And so the other piece I would say is a lot of us have a lot of negative tapes and ideas about ourselves and about God. And so by praying in this way, I am intentionally deprogramming and putting in a new program for faith in my mind and in my heart. So that's the first one. And then meditation, I try to sit in meditation and silence every day. And then the third piece that has brought me a lot of peace and a lot of focus is just taking care of my body. So I try to work out every single day, weightlifting in particular. And so those are the three pieces that form my spiritual connection and practice right now.
So given your response, what I can imagine is that one day you woke up and said, I manifest that I will work at one of the best conferences in the United Church of Christ. And of course, the position happened and you walked into it. But just in case that wasn't completely the prayer, tell me what drew you to Southern New England and sort of why did you say yes to this invitation?
Well, so it's interesting that you say that, because then I'm going to get into, because I do have a little piece to add about this manifestation piece. So I graduated from Union Theological Seminary. So I have several colleagues that are along the coast and, unions in New York. And then I know some folks who are in this conference as well, too. And I just felt like this area of the country would be the best area for me to come to. One, two, I mean, it's the Southern New England Conference. It's the Southern New England Conference. Have you folks not seen who your executive conference minister is and who's on staff here and all of the great things that are happening in the Southern New England
He's
Conference?
Not being paid for this, but go ahead, keep going.
No, and it was just evident to me based on the programs that we have, the Center for Transformational Leadership, the Legacy Corporation, the approach to ministry, the fact that you can Google and search things on the website. Organization and is very important to me. Clarity is very important to me. So there are some things I checked out before I, said yes, or even felt like this would be the place for me. So one, a place of healing, being close to my colleagues. Two, being in an organization that is organized and structured, that has vision. Is a big part of it. And then the third piece, I didn't even know until I came up here for one of the search committee interviews. And someone said to me, and this, I'm sure I'll get in trouble for this, but someone said to me, all of these little Connecticut towns started because they had to have a congregational church. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah. I was like, I'm coming home to the birthplace of Congregationalism. And by coming home, I say that because when I took history and polity, I was very drawn to the tension between the Black Congregationalists and the Afro-Christian. So I wrote my whole history and polity paper on that. And I very much identified with the Black Congregationalist side of the house. And so here I am. Here I am. And so I'm actually thinking about starting a little historical research project on Black Congregationalism and the history of those congregations here in Connecticut as well too. So it's the perfect place. And so yeah, that's why I'm here.
Kind of as we come to a close, I think one of the questions I have for you, Leslie, because this is supposed to be just a taste of who you are, and I invite folks to get to know you more and to learn more about you. But if you could give sort of some final words to folks who you will be in your service area in the South Central part of the Southern New England Conference, who are wondering about this Texan who's arrived here to walk alongside them, what would you sort of leave them with?
So on my first 2 church visits, I included this scripture in my greeting from the conference, in which the Apostle Paul says, I am confident in this, that God who began a good work in you shall carry it through, see it through to completion. And so my message is simply, God is not done with us yet. There is so much more work for us to do. And I'm committed to doing that work and bringing as much hope and life and peace as well too to our churches in the South Central region. All of my life, I have always picked, and some of my friends would say this about me, I've always picked difficult projects, and I guess I just like pushing boulders up mountains. So I commit to continue to being that person, and to also working towards making sure that we have a very successful South Central region in the Southern New England Conference of the United Church of Christ.
Leslie, it has been a joy to be able to share just this little morsel of time with you, which I hope folks watching this will get some deeper sense of who you are as you bring your gifts and talents here. I used to always end my God talks with a blessing and an affirmation of maybe what the Spirit was offering during the time that I spent with someone. And my blessing and or affirmation to you is that I think you will bring a number of things to the Southern New England Conference that I hope will stretch us, that I hope will stretch your region, that I hope people will feel this invitation of warmth and connection and some good challenge. But more importantly, that they might feel the power of the Holy Spirit pulsating through you and with you as you encounter them, I think, in all walks of their ministry. But my blessing is that I hope that everything you pour out, that you feel it being poured back unto you, that the ways in which you show up for clergy and folks and lay people within this context, that you also feel them with appropriate boundaried ways showing up for you with that same sense of extravagant welcome, with the fact that your region and conference is praying alongside you, encouraging you, and sort of we're wind at your back. That this not be a ministry place where you just feel like the institution just took, but that you also feel that there are healthy and important deposits made back in you, that your ministry may also be stretched and growing, that your ministry may also be challenged in the ways that it needs to be. But at the end, you feel that there is water and bread for your journey, and not just that you're spending all the time in the bakery. So my prayer for you is that this be a mutually beneficial partnership. And I look forward, as well as the South Central region and the Southern New England Conference, and walking alongside you. So thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
be upon you. My friends, down at the bottom, you'll see a ticker that is usually on our lives, and it's the Take Action page of the Southern New England Conference. So please pay attention to that and find out the ways that you and your congregation may become a part of this enterprise where we are living the love and justice of Jesus as one Big C church in many locations. All right. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.